The purpose of this channel is to present a clear message and to ultimately change as many minds as possible with respect to how they approach gender issues. Paul Elam has said something to the effect of that we only need maybe 5 or 10% of the population to care and agree with us in order to see the changes that we want. I agree with him on that point. But he also implies that there's a biological barrier that prevents us from gaining the support of the other 90% of the population. And that's where I disagree. I find that conclusion to be premature. There's also a saying going around that most MRAs are only one blowjob away from becoming a mangina. But I say to people who nod along to that idiotic idiom, please put up or shut up. Show me an example of an MRA who crossed the floor over a blowjob. One thing that really stands out to me about the men's movement is all of the one-way traffic. One-way traffic. You would think that there was a death penalty for apostasy because it is so rare. And it all boils down to the weight of evidence and logic. Evidence and logic which most people are deprived of. And quite frankly, those poor kids today are being totally brainwashed. I look at all the fresh converts that we've been picking up from ordinary people, from feminists, and even from radical feminists, and I see a lot of traffic, but it's only in one direction. We don't need to worry about blowjobs. I'm not worried about blowjobs. I suspect that there's a certain MGTOW philosophy that underlies that idiom. And here's another idiom. 'Tis better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. Now that's not MGTOW philosophy. But I digress. I'm not going to talk about MGTOW philosophy in this video. Perhaps in a later video though. Right now I just want to talk about the message of the men's movement, and a few of the barriers to our message that I've noticed. The first barrier that I've noticed is a collection of common false dichotomies that are already set up in the minds of our potential audience. So which one are you really? Are you pro-male or anti-feminist? I've heard that one a lot. Or either you're a feminist or you're a traditionalist. So which one are you? Well, you can easily be neither, assuming you can agree on what those terms even mean in the first place. So, do you support men's rights or women's rights? Well, unless you think that rights are relative like money or status, then you should be able to defend both at the same time, and in principle. We're all equally human after all. I think that we should make it more clear that these are false dichotomies, just to encourage people to open their minds. But even for those who are open-minded, many still can't seem to figure out what we want. It's as if they are staring at a stereogram, and they can't immediately see what is being depicted. It takes time and patience, but they could also use some help. They know that we're angry. They know that we want power. They know that we have issues, but that's about it. If we are not clear and precise enough about what we want, then our audience is more likely to assume that we must have a hidden agenda. And then they will accuse us of every malicious motive that they can come up with. Ignorance about what we want also makes it easier for others to just decide for us what we want, or to just cherry-pick our weakest or least significant issues or grievances and present those as the central issues to paint a ridiculous or absurd picture of us. They might say that we complain about how men are oppressed because we don't get free drinks on ladies' night, or because not enough men are executives of Fortune 500 companies, or what have you. So what are your issues? People seem to have trouble with figuring out what our issues are. Why is there an MRM? What is motivating you guys? What's all the fuss about? I would say that we are addressing three primary core issues, as well as their contributing factors and consequences. And those issues are institutionalized misconceptions about intimate partner violence, institutionalized rape and sexual harassment hysteria, and institutionalized alienation of fathers. I'd say that those are the three core issues which explain why there is an MRM to begin with, even though each issue is surrounded by a cluster of other issues, which I might expand on in the future, and each is tightly interconnected with each other. I think that focusing in on these issues also exposes their common themes and factors, and it also brings light to the other closely related issues, of which there are many. But there's also a different level of issues which you might want to call the negative consequences. Things such as the violation of fundamental human rights and freedoms, suicide, workplace deaths, homelessness, criminalization and incarceration. These are all things which, normally, if you talk about them, gender would not even enter your mind. But they are all universally recognized as negative things. Also, on a different level of abstraction, we can say that we are against gynocentric institutions, misandry, and discrimination and bias against males. But because many people still don't believe that these things exist, or that if they do exist, then they don't think that they're systemic problems, these ideas don't necessarily win us any converts. The burden of proof is on us to provide the evidence. By the way, there are plenty of self-described feminists who are with us 100% on the issues of women being infantilized and treated as victims. And I think it's good to bear that in mind. We can also say that we're against certain root problems such as particular strains of Marxist ideology, feminist ideology, consumerism, money, power, and corruption. And we also want to understand how our biological and social programming contributes to all these issues so that we can resolve them. But ultimately, I think that beginning with these three issues, institutionalized misconceptions about intimate partner violence, institutionalized rape and sexual harassment hysteria, and institutionalized alienation of fathers, is probably the best way to introduce the men's rights movement, and then expand from there into other issues. And I think this is a good way to give people a rough but accurate idea of what the men's rights movement is all about, so they can understand correctly. What do you think? Your feedback is appreciated, of course.